Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place. Ken, let's talk about unfucking our monomind some more.
Let's.
I know that you're more of a fan of fucking things than unfucking things, but so
yeah, but this one's important.
Okay, so we have an episode called Unfuck Your Monomind, and it was really well received, and it definitely deserves a part 2. So this is a deepening of that conversation from, I think, season 7, and now here we are in season 10. What's the monomind?
What is the monomind?
You define this one. I always define everything.
It is the it's like carrying into your life the assumptions and perspectives that monogamy is it's just what is. So the monomind is the way the concept of monogamy gets its fingers into everything.
Yeah.
From our legal system to our
right. So compulsory monogamy and default monogamy, that's a social construct.
That's a
social idea that we co-create with each other. But the monomind,
and it leaks into
is me experiencing it from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing it as a unit of personhood. Here I am having my own experience of subjectivity. And the monomind for me is like, oh, it's not just coming from outside. This isn't like monogamous conditioning just happening to me, but also how I have actually, like, it's baked in, and also how I reinforce it for myself. Like, so I also reinforce it, sometimes because it serves me, and so I don't want to unpack it, and sometimes because I just don't even know that that's what I'm doing.
I have these these originally unchallenged assumptions about how human relationships should go based on monogamy. And then I challenge them. So then there's all those unchallenged assumptions. And that's the monomind. And then I challenge them. Like, wait, let me think about that. Oh, okay. And then they creep back in after I've challenged them.
They're gremlins.
Because they're gremlins. They're trying to get back in the house. Okay,
I'm very Gen X here, owning my Gen X-ness. They are gremlins. They come in, they seem like real cute and adorable, giving this idea of like happily ever after and
real careful how you feed them.
But yeah, they can become the very thing that actually like debilitates, that ruins things. And it's not that monogamy itself is the problem. It's the monomind is when the call's coming from within that something's not right, because I'm experiencing and I'm choosing non-monogamy. I'm enjoying this experimentation, but it's also wrong. It's just wrong. This is bad. And it's not somebody else telling me that it's bad. So we talk a little bit about internalized polyphobia, and I would relate that to the monomind. Internalized polyphobia is like that stigma that I actually feel coming from within, because I've already internalized the idea that monogamy is the correct way to be.
Yeah.
And anything that it deviates from that is deviant, with the bad italics. So the monomind is something that I just want to say, I have not solved it. I'm 15 years in. You're like, I don't know, like 157 years in, something like that. Yeah. You're basically Duna Dane. I'm not immune to it. The monomind, the experience of like, oh, that is me making a monogamous assumption accidentally, especially at the unconscious level. At the level where the only way I detect the monomind stuff is because when I start looking at my actions, or my partner starts sharing their experience of my actions, I'm like, oh, look what's coming up for me.
Filling out here. I'm gonna invite a bunch of people to a party. Okay, I'm gonna invite you. And who's your plus one?
Yeah, there's a great example of
one, right?
Automatically forgetting, and it happens so frequently, or just using the word couple, like in all
Yep.
places. I recently saw a book post. It was a book talk post, and it was a cute post with all these books that have polyamorous themes in them. And the headline of the caption was polyamorous couples.
I love that
It
phrase.
was
That
the
is
cognitive dissonance
beautiful.
in that is so I mean, my tagline is couples. I am the coach for couples who color outside the lines, because I am frequently working, and I choose to work with people who are currently coupled or who have lived in couplehoods for a long time, whereas that as their model. And during the transition time where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And some of those people choose to stay primarily in coupling situations, or they couple up and they do a lot of parallel work where they're in multiple couplehoods. But lots and lots of non-monogamy breaks that whole paradigm apart and starts creating relationship constellations, different shapes of relationships. And so the assumptions that we make around
Yeah.
couplehood. And
Yeah.
so this links into other episodes we've done on couple privilege, on social monogamy. These all influence each other. But
Yep.
I find that the most important thing for me is to remember that sometimes my monomind is running the store. Like, and I really just don't see it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need someone else to point it out, to make it obvious to me, like, oh. And other times I'm aware of it. I know it, but it serves me.
Mhm.
Because believing that I am in the mainstream, I'm in the popular, the normative view of correctness feels more comfortable, or it supports what I want.
Yeah.
So sometimes monomind stuff comes up when I'm trying to figure out how to negotiate a relationship agreement, and I can rely on the social norms of monogamy to get me a better deal, to get me
Yeah.
more. And so
Right.
I can trick myself even
Yep.
into believing, no, this is just me wanting a boundary, and or this is me having a bottom line. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's me recognizing, oh, actually, that is a manipulative part of me that wants control more than what she wants to be engaging in an autonomous relationship, a relationship that prioritizes autonomy in this moment. And in that moment, when I recognize, oh, yeah, I'm letting myself build agreements from a monomind perspective because it
Mhm.
suits my purposes in this situation.
Yeah.
That is a moment of growth. Noticing that
Noticing that.
is
Mhm.
a moment of I actually would celebrate it, and I would say that is a time when we could say, "Okay, now you're aware that sometimes you're manipulative in your relationships." Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yes, welcome to humanity.
Welcome to humanity. Totally.
So that doesn't have to be a way I beat myself up. I think that actually acknowledging it and saying, okay, so some parts of me are on board with prioritizing egalitarian values, with prioritizing autonomy, or with unpacking my couple privilege and figuring out how to do this differently. Some parts of me aren't.
Yeah.
Who's got the microphone?
Yep.
Who's running my show? And if I don't
So,
know that, then the monomind may be running a lot more than I imagine.
yeah. So, practically then, what are some things we can do to notice? Like noticing that is the growth, that is the first step of growth, of saying, "Oh, that actually doesn't align with my values."
Yeah.
Okay, so what am I
And
going to do? So,
just
mhm,
questioning. Like, is this, and some people feel like it's just it's a new question that they ask themselves. Every time they're running up against a relational ouch or something, they're like, is that a, authentically me? Is this my belief? Is this my value? Is this my need? Is this what I actually want? Or is this what I was conditioned to imagine is correct? And like sorting those two things out is that's the work. That's individuation work. That's the work of understanding what is authentically me and what is not. And since individuation by definition is the psychological work of becoming who you are, claiming that, and not just fitting into the mold of
yeah,
what you were expected to be, that's individuation work. So I know that wasn't practical, but I just want to
Like, that's
highlight
kind
what
of the
profound work it
mhm.
is,
Yeah.
and that it is an ongoing process because we never are done. We're never done individuating. If somebody tells you that they're individuated, I suggest turning and walking in the other direction.
Because
It's
they're a ghost.
Yeah, I mean, we're not
Because they
done.
finished their life. Yeah, we're not done. You'll be individuating the whole
Oh,
time.
so okay, so what can we do? One of the practical things, I mean, I'm all about handing people resources. Jessica Fern and David Cooley wrote a follow-up book to Polysecure, called Polywise. We had them on the show a while ago to talk about Polywise, and I think Polywise is a great place to actually dig in and go past the initial stages of, okay, I'm thinking about opening, to what do I need to actually do to unpack all of this mono conditioning? So I would, as just resource, I would
Start
look
as a
at,
good place to
that's a
start.
great
Mhm.
place. Um, Paradigm shift isn't simple, and that's what you're doing when you're
Yeah.
making the transition from a life that centers monogamy to centering non-monogamy. It often feels like, oh, there'll be a threshold I'll cross. And when I cross that, I will consider myself non-monogamous. Like maybe that threshold feels like it's when my partner has their first date or has sex with someone else. Maybe it feels like when we go to our first group sex party. Maybe it feels like it's when my partner starts having a person that they sleep over nights with. Maybe it happens when you start not talking about yourselves as a couple and instead talking about yourselves as individuals. Any of those might be an imagined threshold, but all of those are like moments. They're a line in the sand.
Mhm.
The transition, the paradigm shift is a long hallway of liminal space.
Yeah, and I heard you say paradigm shift, and it occurred to me that it's not a shift, it's a transformation. Like, shift
Mm.
implies you're going from first gear to second gear. We're shifting. We're shifting from one thing to another. And you just described this long hallway of liminal space in which the paradigm is transforming. It doesn't change. It's not all this and then it's all that. It's made up of the little moments where you are transforming your point of view and your
Yeah.
language and your stories that you tell,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
to align with the new paradigm. And it doesn't happen all at once. Don't expect it to
No.
happen all at once.
And it's not going, you're not, in my experience, you're not going to get to a day where you're like, there, check, I
Yeah.
got it.
Hmm.
And again, the people who have hurt me the most in non-monogamy are people who absolutely told me, I'm so glad I'm done. I'm so glad I figured this all out.
Yeah.
And
That's
those
not
people
how it
have
goes.
fucked me up. Those people
Hmm.
have been damaging. So that makes me incredibly leery. It's an ongoing paradigm shift, and so the image that I use is I'm walking down this long hallway and the the universe is changing around me, but also I am changing. The inside of me is changing.
Yeah.
I am reconfiguring how I meet the world. My lenses are different. So another metaphor we could use is the lenses.
Yes.
I
Hmm.
If I shift my language and I stop talking about forever as the measure of success, right? If I stop using longevity of a relationship to determine whether it was successful or failure, and I start thinking about how graceful transitions, a graceful transition equals success in my book. That to me is taking off one lens and picking up another. Because now, not only when I look at my own relationships do I view them differently, but when I look at other people's relationships, I view
Yeah.
them differently.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking about the times when I've been at a 50th anniversary party with two people who appear to have nothing at all to do with each other, who barely even want to be on the same side of the room, and who mostly just look like people who are taking up space next to each other now. I do not judge that as a success with this new lens on. The lens of non monogamy shifted how I see their monogamous relationship.
Hmm.
But I've been to other, oh my gosh, I mean, I danced at a wedding with my longest married relatives. And I mean, to the day he died, he called her his bride. They were so sweet and caring and in love, and I have no idea what the background of all their relationship was, but I could absolutely see how longevity was a piece of their success. So And for me, this is about, again, my lens. The lens I was applying allowed me to see beyond the metric of years. It's not the
Yes, right.
years, it's
The simplistic
the quality of
measurement of years.
their
Yeah.
relating. Totally different. So again, like, I could be monogamous. I could practice monogamy tomorrow, and I wouldn't take away this paradigm shift. I would never want to strip myself of this different way of looking at the world, because I feel it improves my behavior with people across all sorts of relationship spectrums, and it gives me more ways to see how people can be healthy with each other, happy with each other. Um, Another really common one, like, so I think this is about behavior. So yeah, let's dig deeper. The unfucking your monomind is about paying attention to how you look at the world, and how you use your language, and how you are interacting with other people, how you're interacting with the monogamous narrative, right? This is what we can do. So, another thing I can do is stop erasing friendships between people that I imagine, if they were friends, they must be romantic. I'm going to make
Mhm.
this real simple. If you're a person who in monogamy has felt like, well, I don't want my husband to have any female friends. I mean, we've talked about this before. Gender essentialism aside, as if we could even put a thumb over that, that is just monogamous conditioning. Like, that's what that is. And so if I have taken it on, if I've swallowed it, and now I'm worried when you have femme presenting friends, but I'm not worried when you have masc presenting friends, I'm erasing. It's not just about the sex or the romance or the relationship. I'm also erasing the potential of friendships, but I'm also then, like, putting your potential friendships in a hierarchy. It's
And you're
it's really profoundly impactful.
and when we do that, we are judging other people's um we're having to imagine a whole bunch of things that we have no information about,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the bi erasure in there is shocking.
right?
I never have understood this.
Right?
I will always struggle with this. You and I are both bisexual. So what in the world difference does it make what gender friend we have or
Yep.
what gender partner we have?
Mhm.
But but I spent 17 years with someone who was completely fine with me being full on in love and in lust with women, or people that he perceived to be women, and absolutely not okay the second I had feelings for someone who
That
presented
he
masculine.
perceived as a man. Mhm.
Yep. And what disturbed me about that is that I was actually I didn't know that he didn't take any of my bisexuality seriously. Didn't matter. It was so demeaning to me. I was like, "Oh, not only did you not take my bisexuality seriously, but now essentially what that boiled down to is, so you don't see that person as a threat." I gotta tell you, I've had some women treat me really, 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 really good. Good enough that I could definitely forget that men existed. Definitely.
Yeah,
Um, it's such nonsense,
it's nonsense. It is exactly that. And so
but here we are, and we
if
do this to each other.
if you're committed to a non-monogamous set of values, and you find yourself bristling when your partner has friends who don't line up with the
Mononorm.
the mononorm, um, you've got a monogremlin in there.
Yeah, and I hear that you can blow them up in microwaves.
Throw
I
water on them, right?
Yeah, but you're not supposed to feed them after midnight, and actually, that's an interesting. I think using the gremlin metaphor is helpful here,
It's
because
good. Yeah.
frequently I will get texts from people, or signal messages from people who are, yeah, it's the middle of night wherever they are,
Yep.
and they're freaking out about something. And these things do like, our mono mind tends to be stronger when we are under resourced. So if you're struggling right then, I want you to look at the other ways that you're resourced. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't name it. if you are feeling discomfort because your partner has a friend of a gender you find threatening, okay, you should definitely say that out loud, and you should work on it. There are many other things. That feels like a really easy one to put a point on. Um, we could also talk about the whole notion of where's the line with romance? What exactly is romance? You and I did an episode on romantic friendship
Yeah.
that was very well received. It's actually one of our highest listened episodes. When I think about friendship and when people talk to me about like, well, I'm okay with my partner having friends, but I don't want them to have romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what does that mean exactly?
Where, yeah.
Because how I
Mm.
treat my friends, most people would probably consider very romantic. I like to cook for them. I like to bring them flowers. I absolutely will schedule and plan interesting dates and adventures. I will buy them meaningful gifts. I don't have sex with them because that's not inside of our relationship agreements. Um, I How do we know? So the monomind creates an imaginary condition that is romance. And we all imagine it differently. So first off, we also have to get specific about what do we even mean? If we were
Right.
trying to apply the mono norms, what do I even mean? What is it that I want or don't want you to do?
Yeah.
And then what does it mean to be romantic with someone or to be intimate with them?
Yeah. It's one of
You
the
and I were
reasons that the monomind is so slippery is that um, there is no actual standard for what monogamy is.
right.
There's no standard for what it is to be in a monogamous relationship, but we're told there is, but there
Yeah.
100% isn't, because like you're describing, where are the lines of at what point does your friendship with someone threaten me as a monogamous person in a relationship with you? That's entirely personal. There is no line you could draw. There is no external standard.
And
So
I
it's
gotta tell you, it
really
has a lot to
slippery.
do with how you are treating me. Whether my
Oh,
friendships are a
whether,
threat has
yeah,
way more to do with how you are treating me with more than how they are. When
yeah,
I ended a marriage, it was not because someone else had become more enticing. It was because my current partner started hurting me. I
so yeah,
so there.
and
I
it, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point out the how monogamy contains the seeds of its own destruction, because when faced with that threat, the common the modern narrative is to behave in ways that actually make the relationship worse rather than do things to make it better. So if I feel threatened
Yeah.
by your friendship, stories, songs, movies, we have so many examples of, oh, apparently now I'm supposed to somehow like strong arm you into preferring me
Well,
over them.
jealousy, man,
Yeah.
jealousy.
Yep.
So, actually, we could do a whole episode on the monomind and jealousy specifically, and the
Mm,
different
yeah.
ways we look at jealousy based on whether we're approaching it from a monogamous mind or a non-monogamous mind. So, let's
Yeah.
bookmark that and come back to it for a part 3.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of other like tropes from the monogamous world that I find really trip people up. One of them is the idea that having less people in a relationship necessarily means that you have easier relationships. And
Yeah.
you and
I
I don't experience that as being true. And it also has seeds of truth. Like there is increased complexity when there are more people. And sometimes that is like a web coming together and you're like, wow,
yeah.
this is actually
Yep.
easier because there's more support points. And sometimes it is like sticking your hand into a wasp's nest and
Yep.
there are
Yeah.
too many
And
wasps in there.
too
We
many
don't we
wasps.
too
I
many
got
wasps.
stung by too many wasps.
I don't know. It's not about how many people. And you and I went through the pandemic, the most intense part of the pandemic, not partnered to other people. Our relationship did not get easier from
It
my
did not get
perspective,
easier.
love.
And easier is like, that is one of those things that there is no standard for.
Yeah.
What's easy for me is different than what's easy for you.
Yeah.
And so a change can make things easier or harder. So yeah,
But the
as soon as I
idea that
start looking this,
but the idea that having to schedule actually, like, having to deal with calendar scheduling
mhm,
or
mhm,
having to hold myself responsible for my own decisions,
yeah,
right? We talk about hinge skills. If I have multiple partners, I have to continually come back and take responsibility for my decisions. I cannot push them off onto one or the other of my partners.
yeah,
Yeah, that is effort. It's not harder, but it is effort.
mhm,
And you could frame it in your mind as like, this is so complicated. Or I've had people just say, I don't want to have repair conversations. I
okay,
All monogamous relationships should also have repair conversations, repair tools,
yes,
ways of repairing. But so that's not a thing that goes away. But I have heard people say, "Yeah, but there's just more opportunities for needing repair." And I would say that is your experience. It actually
yeah,
wasn't. In my monogamous relationship, that was absolutely like my long-term monogamous relationship was a source of life that needed repair multiple times a day, every day, the entire 17 years we were together. So, again, subjective.
subjective,
But sometimes we find that the norms of monogamy really do feel better for us. And that's not the same thing as just like accepting the mono mind,
right,
the mono perspective and applying it and saying, yes, this is correct. So this isn't about you saying it's always better in the non-monogamous paradigm. It absolutely
right,
isn't. You may actually find the complexity of having multiple partners to be just no fun and you don't like it. And that's fine too. Um, there's There's so many things that we do all day though. I think this is important to hit on. There are things we do all day that reinforce the
oh
mono
yes,
mind.
let's talk about that.
So to get really like down to the just the day-to-day details of how we can shift things. Um, one of them is I have to think about the language I'm using to describe
Mhm,
things. Like you
yep,
said, the like asking about plus ones. Um, assuming that couplehood is the norm. And there's a deeper conversation here to be had about um, prioritizing romance over friendship and also prioritizing the desire and need for a romantic relationship at all.
right,
Like, what if we didn't need that? So that's another conversation. But the language that we use around monogamy and non-monogamy, I have people regularly say things that they mean to be cute, but they'll say things like, "Oh, that poly weird shit," or "Oh,
yep,
that
yep,
like." Oh, that's you do you, boo, but that's so cute. There's like an infantilization. There's a lot that
yeah,
happens a lot. How we use language to continually reinforce the mono
mhm,
world, it influences us too and what we allow in our space. And so I've
and
had people get
and
frustrated
language
by
that
my requirements not to use that language, but
but allowing that language in unchallenged, like, and you can have whatever interaction with the person that's saying these things to you, but if you just accept it internally, it's you're
right. So
feeding the gremlins,
even just acknowledging,
versus
I didn't
saying,
like that
wait a minute,
inside.
I didn't like that. Yep,
Even if you don't have to defend. It is not your job to educate everyone.
yep.
It's mine. Um, but but you don't have to. It is also we also just spend a lot of time fitting into mono spaces.
Yeah,
We just here we live in this mono society and we spend all this time fitting in. And some of that is conscious, some of it's unconscious, some of it we hate, some of it we're like, it's fine. But all of that I just like to remind myself regularly that even though so much of my life, my research, my work, my romantic life, my sex life, my friendships, many of them, like so much of it revolve around non monogamy. And still, I exist within a
yep,
dominant mono paradigm. And therefore, I am fitting in. And so I have to continually unpack that and acknowledge the impact that it has on my psyche.
right, and being as intentional as possible, being aware, like you said, of oh, I am doing this to fit in.
And that also means forgiving myself when, like, Oh, I did. I just did the thing. I still make those mistakes. Absolutely. When I accidentally prioritize romance, accidentally, assume the couplehood, all the things. Um, yeah. So own it, acknowledge it, and then move into, okay, how do I want to be? And that, I don't know. So 15 years in, I'm still doing that. I expect that it will exist within me because I'm not the one opening the door to let the gremlins in. Other people also open the door and shove gremlins in my
Right.
house. So
And
this is effort.
yeah. And for example, the media that we consume.
Sure. All day, every
I
day.
mean, all day, every day, there are so many subtle as well as not so subtle. Uh, there's so much support for the mono mind,
Right.
for that paradigm, and it's
Representation matters.
because representation matters, and I see it all the time, and it can happen so much that it can wear you down a little bit.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
uh, but trying to stay mindful of, okay, what am I looking at? Are those people thinking about? Are they just? Is there any evidence that they're thinking about the fact that maybe it's not always two people?
Right.
Just asking that question helps me filter the the incoming media for myself.
And there are subtle places too. So I mean, we have so much media that we live in this image rich world, but there's also like forms I fill out, conversations
Sure.
I have with
Yep.
my doctors. The assumption we go to a coffee shop regularly. I I have talked about my non-monogamy in places. I know that they have heard it, but I know that they absolutely see us as a couple.
Yep.
I I I cannot undo that without like wearing a t-shirt or stamping my forehead. And
Yeah.
yet there it is. Like I feel the couplehood. Um, and every time I go to a doctor's appointment, I am seen as a middle-aged married woman. I am not
Right.
perceived to be a person who is having multiple sex partners. Um, so I have to proactively deal with that because they have me check off these forms and then they
Yeah.
don't ask me things like, and do you need an STI panel?
Right.
So I have to be proactive about that. And the mono mind isn't just about, do I remember to do that? It's about, do I judge myself? Is that gremlin coming in and making me and slut shaming me?
Right.
Or is that gremlin coming in and saying, this person is probably thinking that something's wrong with you or something? And I've been really lucky to have some great conversations with practitioners lately.
That's great.
Really
That's good to hear.
fantastic. Really, I've been treated so much better in the last 4 or 5 years than previously. So I think more practitioners are getting educated. However, that's not the norm.
Right.
Um,
So as
and
we
that goes for
wrap up,
therapists too, by the way,
sure.
not just
Yeah.
medical
Right.
doctors.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of therapists just making the assumption. So yeah,
Yeah.
and lots who don't. Um,
So as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to highlight in the or anything that's been left out yet?
the biggest one is it is incredibly challenging to untangle, and unpack your monomind without community that's also
Mm,
doing that.
yeah.
We all deserve to have people around us who are questioning things. And that doesn't have to mean that everybody's adhering to the same new relational norms. My goal isn't to move people from one box into another,
Right.
but to simply be in the space of like, well, what if we question it? What if monogamy is not the assumed default?
Yep.
What if in this space we assume that people are writing their own scripts? So I mean that's what we do in the year of opening. It's why also we meet for a year, and then after we meet for a year, you have access to monthly community calls forever, for as long as I am alive doing this work, um, because having that community makes a difference. I and that's actually free with the year of opening. I just do it because I really believe that that is the game changer. That surrounding ourselves with people who are deeply in their own process, who are questioning whether they are with 0 people or 20 people at a time
Yeah.
is not the point. They are people who are questioning the mono mind perspective and allowing themselves to use that as individuation material.
So if you're in the process of transforming your paradigm, or you want to you've done a good job and you want to keep going, yeah, paradigm change is always easier in a group.
Yeah. So you can go to
Always.
theyearofopening.com and you can book a call with me to talk about whether that's the right environment for you. And if you're not sure whether it is, well, then you could go to joliequiz.com and find out where you are in your journey. Thanks, Ken. This was a great
Thank you.
conversation. We talk to you all the time. It is absolutely imperative to me that we get to hear from you as well.
Yes, please.
So, we'd love to invite you to join us. Join Ken and I. We're holding monthly Ask Me Anythings. You can show up, bring your questions from podcast episodes, from your relationships, bring questions about non monogamy, about individuation, about relationship skills. We would love to share space with you. We're hosting these AMAs free of charge for our podcast listeners. You are the Playing with Fire community, and it matters a ton to us that we connect with you directly. So
Oh,
go,
I would so love to hear your questions, and it'd be so awesome.
yeah. Go to joliehamilton.com/AMA and you'll find a way to sign up real quick and get an invitation to join us in a small group where we're going to get together and talk about all things non monogamy, individuation, and relationships.